Hi, and welcome.
I'm Z,
And I'm Keith.
and we're going to tell you about the movie that we just watched. But first, a little bit of a heads up.
Some of the movies we watch deal with heavy subject matters.
In order to talk about these emotionally delicate things and the heavy subject matters that we sometimes cover, we had humor and crude language to add some levity and to process our own trauma.
If that doesn't feel fun or safe for you, we completely understand. Please take care of yourself first and foremost.
And we spoil the end of pretty much every movie that we watch.
Now you know. On with the show. Anything?
What?
Anything?
It's on.
Is that a thing?
This is a late start to record.
No one
Not
cares.
that you care, but or can even tell. No one can tell. I woke up with a migraine. I'm feeling a little bit better. Not 100%. So if I'm not my normal lively, it's not because I'm stoned. We know that. Because
Not this time.
If I was stoned, I would just be talking incessantly and laughing at my own jokes. But I might not be super whatever. We'll see.
This film is called In the Mouth of Madness.
Well,
In the Mouth of Madness.
I was very excited to rewatch this, and I was glued to the screen the whole way through.
Yeah, man.
It's insane.
It was part of this was timing of day, but I was simultaneously like close to nodding off a few times. But it's never boring.
Mm-mm.
It is paced very
It was really good.
like I don't know if you said this in lobby, but you're like all I really remember, and I'm like, yeah, that's kind of all there is to the movie. It's moves quick. Like I forgot all the stuff at the end, which is not a whole bunch of stuff, but like him in the hotel room.
I forgot about the
And
hotel
in the
room.
movie theater.
I thought, yeah, like this is the thing. This is the thing I think that I like about this movie, and I like when movies in general do this. It just escalates as it goes. Like it doesn't do the thing where like it almost feels like there aren't acts to this movie. It's just like
totally.
each thing just escalates.
Yeah.
And that is more interesting to me. Because you're like not waiting for something to fall off. You're not waiting for a thing to, they're not like, here's the start of the escalation. Then it calms down, and then another thing happens, and then it calms down, and then it's not like that. It's like things just keep escalating, and it's very interesting. And the way it ends is so fucking funny to me.
I love it.
It's so funny. It's so weird. And Sam Neill does so good in it. It's like it's not even, and I don't like honestly like. I think the only thing that I might even change, or I don't know that I would change it, because he's an insurance
Fraud investigator.
fraud investigator, and he's looking for Sutter Kane, who's the writer of these books, who has gone missing.
Because his company is on retainer by the publisher.
Yeah,
I think is what it is.
whatever. He consistently, he just is. It seems like it's his whole personality, but it's just him repeating this. You don't really get a lot of backstory with him, which is very interesting, and I approve of it. He's just like, I don't believe that like things. He's just like, I'm a realist. I think everybody's, full of shit. And I don't really think, I don't think this guy is actually missing. He just keeps like giving them like caveats to like not get themselves in trouble. He's like, if you wanted to, you could just, say, never mind, and we could just go home, or I could, even though it's probably a hoax, I could go find this guy for you.
Yeah.
How can you be sure he's there?
Well, I have to go to be sure. You sure you want me to go? See, I'm not suggesting that you're lying, that you're about to file a fraudulent claim, but forgive me if this sounds a little bit like bullshit to me.
And like,
He's just, for most of it, he's just he's convinced that it's a publicity
yeah, right.
stunt.
And he's just like, I know this is a publicity stunt. And they're like, how could this possibly be a publicity stunt? All this shit, and he's like,
hidden speakers, I got to give it up.
yeah, he's just like, and it doesn't matter like how much it escalates. He's just like, man, this is a crazy publicity stunt. You guys are really good actors. Someone blows their head off in front of him, and that's the only thing that gets him possibly thinking it might not be
Right.
a hoax. But it takes so long to get to that point. But like, you actually meet Sutter Kane, the writer, and I forgot that when it showed Jurgen Prochnov or whatever in it, I was like, he's in this? I don't remember it at all. And like, he's Kane.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I don't remember him at all in this movie. And I was like, I was semi-convinced that Sam Neill was Sutter Kane at first.
Yeah, same.
I was like,
even though
oh yeah. I was like, I think that's what happens. It's not what happens. But I'm like,
and Charlton Heston,
Charlton Heston.
fucking A. David Warner.
This movie is crazy. This movie is fucking crazy.
Yeah.
I don't hate it. It's so weird. It's so weird.
Here's what, man, I'm always reluctant to rewatch movies unless they really impact me the first time and I'm like, oh my God. Mm-hmm. Or, a fair amount of times I'll watch a movie and I'm like, is that doing as much as I think it is?
Right. Yeah.
Or I feel like it's really saying something. I don't know what that is, and I really want to figure it out. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Those are the times I'm really hot to rewatch a movie. Otherwise, it's really hard for me to want to rewatch because there's so many movies to watch, and I'd rather.
For sure.
I mean, definitely there's times I want to comfort watch, but.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And I was a little nervous because this is time 3 for me that it was going to be diminishing returns. But no, it's one of those movies that it's so the bonkers stuff about it becomes less distracting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so you can see you can feel the progression and the overall story better, or that's what happens for me.
Yeah, for sure.
Like this time I'm like, oh, right. Okay. It's just all it is pretty straightforward. This horror writer is just writing into existence a universe for the old gods to inhabit on Earth.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah. That's all.
You can ignore all the shit about like, oh, what is reality? If the crazy people were in charge, then what?
It's it's such a weird, and something that I think is interesting is that you don't. Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. It's just also like, I think it's one of my favorite Carpenter movies. I think it's one of the more effective Carpenter movies.
Yeah, 1000%. Yeah.
And it keeps switching it up as far as the visual tactics, I feel like.
Yeah.
Like, there's things that you will feel kind of cliche if you've watched horror or spooky things, but the fact that he doesn't, definitely the imagery, there's so much of the imagery is Lovecraftian.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And that seems to be the whole point, is it's sort of his homage.
Yeah.
To that. But I just think about how, and you could, sometimes it's just, this is distracting when a movie does this. It keeps it from feeling consistent or like it congeals into one thing. But like in the beginning when Sykes, is that her name? Styles.
Styles. I think that's what it is.
When they're trying to find Knobs Inn or whatever.
Hobbs End.
Hobbs Bell End. And she's driving, and it's night, and then the road, the divider lines on the street just vanish.
Yeah.
And then she looks down, and it's a lightning strike, and there's clouds below, and then going through the covered bridge.
Yeah.
Her acting choices are something.
Yeah.
But like that, and then like, I rewatched it because that was really interesting when Sam Neill's trying to leave, and he gets in the loop where he keeps coming up against the torches and pitchfork crowd, and then eventually he tries to go around them, and he just rams into a parked truck.
No, he goes through them.
Okay, that's what it is.
But
then he sees her.
Styles.
That's right. And then he swerves and hits the truck. But it does this quick cutaway to the perspective is like they must have put a camera on that truck because it's his car ramming into the back of the truck.
Yeah.
It's just like a split second. I'm like, oh, that's really interesting because it's just there long enough to register a shift of perspective and then back again to whatever it was before, like outside his car or whatever. But it really gives you, it's visceral, and it gives you the force of the impact of the cars in a way that wouldn't be there if it didn't do that.
Right. And like for it, and it's an interesting sort of like thing because it takes you, it gives you like a realism of a car accident that like most horror movies wouldn't have. Like they would try to like make it
you don't get that
over the top, especially with everything else that's happening.
Yeah, for real.
What they do is they try to make it's like it becomes like more realistic and more like like something that you would recognize, you know, like as being like a real world car accident. And so you're like, what?
Yeah, the shifting of POV is what it is, you know, and then but just for a split second, so it's takes you out of the comfort of
it's not real.
Yeah,
it's a really this is a thing where I'm like, this is sort of like it's definitely like it's showing you a descent into like madness, obviously.
Sort of.
Like his descent into like from being like everything's normal to normal is not what it used to be. You know, everything's normal, but it's not.
Yeah, he says reality isn't what it used to be or whatever.
Yeah, you know. And so it's just like, it's different, you know, and it's just like his acceptance of that sort of thing, which one could argue is an acceptance of your own madness, you know, because it's like you are just acknowledging that what used to be is not anymore, you know. Anyway, but it does it in such a way that you like, you almost don't notice that that's what's going on. You think that he's your guide through this. And then it's just like, no, he's part of the whole, he's part of the story of it. He's not an outsider. He's actually part of the story, and he's supposed to be here, and he's supposed to be doing this. And this is, it's sort of like, you know, when he's like in in the asylum and he's like, nah, I'm actually good. I'm actually good in here. And he's just like, it's fine. Like, this is probably better for me. Anyway, like, I don't need to, you know, because they're like, we need to get you out of here. And he's like, actually, no, you don't. And I think that's like a very interesting sort of thing where it's not him being afraid. It's just him being like, actually, you know what? I'm good, actually, you know?
Yeah.
And there's not like, it's an interesting thing of him. He's the same at the end as he is at the beginning. Like,
pretty much.
An acceptance of, I believe in what's real, but what's real has changed.
Right.
So it's like it's a really interesting thing where the madness is like just what surrounds him. Mm-hmm. and that's his. And so it's a very interesting movie. But I remember like when the first time I watched it, you were like, you had just watched the movie like a month before, if that.
Okay.
And you were like, I want you to watch it. And I was like, okay. And I watched it. I remember it was before we lived together.
Uh-huh.
But I don't think it was that long before. Because it was definitely in those few months that I was not working for the bank anymore.
Oh, okay.
So it was like in that 6 months of time that or like, I don't know, 8 months of time that I had where I was not living with you and I was not working at the bank. That was a very
Or the
short
cafe.
time. No, I was,
were.
I don't know if I don't know if I was working at the cafe or not. It might have been actually, it might have been even closer to, because it might have been when I was hurt and I was like, just like not feeling good and I just wanted to watch a movie or something. Anyway, whatever. It doesn't matter. So, you know, you were like, here, let's watch this. And we hadn't quite hit our, all we want to watch is 90s. This was obviously before the podcast.
Right.
But I was definitely like, okay, you know, I'll give this a try, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And we got to the end, and I was like, what the fuck? And you were like, I told you. And I was like, what the fuck is this movie? You're like, yeah, right? Huh? And I was like, holy shit.
And it's like you say, like, a lot of films like, the resolution would be the confrontation with
Right.
Sutter Kane.
Uh-huh. Exactly. Yes.
And that is sort of the peak. Mm-hmm. But everything that happens afterwards I wouldn't call it resolution.
No.
You know what I mean?
No.
Like, it's just like, no, thanks. Shit's still crazy.
Yeah.
I read that, I think this was just in the trivia, but they wrote the effect. The original effect was different, and I think it's so effective. I mean, it's kind of cheesy that, you know, like shit tears away and it's
A book.
script. Yeah. But like when he tears his face and there's nothing behind him, but then it's anyway. Apparently, originally they were going to have the whole town of Hobbs End be swallowed by the book,
Oh, interesting.
and they were like couldn't figure out a way to do it within budget.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
The wall of monsters or whatever they called it, which I think is what's chasing him down the corridor,
Yeah.
was most of the budget,
I bet.
and it took like 25 people to operate or something.
Yeah. That's
It
not
was a
surprising.
practical effect.
Yeah. I could tell.
Yeah. I love it. I love a tunnel monster.
Yeah, it's terrifying. It's always terrifying because I feel like that was always like my biggest irrational fear as like a child was like trying to get away from something and not being fast enough.
Yeah.
That's always scary as a kid because I don't know if maybe you weren't, but you're always reminded that you're weak
Oh yeah.
and not fast enough because you're a kid.
Right.
And so I'm always like, oh God,
Yeah.
how would I, you know, that was always like, so if I'd have seen this as a kid, this would have been the most terrifying movie I'd ever watched in my life.
I guess the
You guess what, Keith?
but I guess I read that. Which is it? It's when they're in the church and she's reading about him staring into the abyss or whatever when he's staring down.
Yeah.
That's almost lifted directly from Lovecraft.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
I was like, I wonder if that was actually from Lovecraft.
Yeah, and there's one other that he reads.
Yeah.
Oh, it's about the church.
Okay.
That's a real fucking church. And it is really in the middle of nowhere like that.
That's amazing.
Outside of Toronto.
That's
or somewhere in
amazing.
Ontario.
That's amazing. That's hot.
Yeah.
Also, like, what I like is that there's like, I like this because I feel like they don't do a lot to explain things, and that's always, I love that. I don't want you to explain stuff.
Nope.
I don't want you to overly explain
Always
stuff.
always backfires.
But like when they're at the church And all these people are driving up.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh my God, we got to get away. They get to the church and they're like, give him back, Kane. And then the door opens and there's just like a little kid standing there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what is this? What does that mean?
Yeah.
Who is this? And they
It's the dude's son, and that's why.
Yeah.
That's,
But it doesn't explain
it doesn't.
nothing. You're just like,
and
what?
then a bunch of fucking Dobermans show up,
And attack them all.
which apparently resulted in some real injuries on set. Go figure.
We hired attack dogs, and turns out they attacked people.
Also, the first time learning that the paperboy at the end is Hayden Christensen. His first appearance, his first role ever.
Oh my God. Hold me. The worst fucking scene in the whole fucking franchise.
No. My favorite to reference, though.
Fucking hate it.
This is in the trivia. Who the fuck knows? The car keys that Julie Cameron swallows when Sam Neill is trying to escape from town were made out of pasta.
Okay. Oh, you mean she didn't really swallow car keys? That's crazy. It seemed like she really did. I assumed that she just committed. I like how she puts him in her mouth and he's just like, well, I got to get the screwdriver now and hotwire my car. And I'm like, you didn't even see a close up of her throat going gulp, you know?
Wait, I want to find out the actor. I'm trying to remember. That guy who's like, son gets swallowed and then shoots himself.
Yeah.
This was like his last role.
Oh, shit. Did he die of that fucking forehead that he has?
He was a wrestler, apparently.
Wilhelm von Homburg.
Perfect. The Wilhelm. I just wanted to shout him out for he's got another prominent role, a more famous role. I can't remember what it is. As soon as I read it, I was like, oh, fucking duh.
Like, boys love it on the Wilhelm.
Oh, yeah, he's Vigo the Destroyer in Ghostbusters 2 or whatever. He was the big baddie. He's also in Die Hard. Mm-hmm. But Ghostbusters 2 is what I'm thinking of.
I don't know if I've seen Ghostbusters 2.
What?
Yep. I saw the first Ghostbusters in theater as an adult for the first time.
Nice. What'd you think?
It's great. It's got Sigourney Weaver. I'm not going to complain.
Well, I love that Atherton's the EPA is the enemy because they're running a fucking nuclear reactor in there.
Oh, yeah.
It's true. This man has no penis.
I don't remember much of it because it was like 10 years ago that I saw it in theaters.
The second one has the guy who's sort of the analog he'd be the analog of Rick Moranis' character.
The analog?
The equivalent.
Okay. So Rick
would
Moranis.
be analogous to. What I mean is the guy helping the evil spirit.
I see.
Is the guy who played, I think the character's name was John Cage on Ally McBeal.
Oh.
He turns up in Veep. Anyway.
Okay.
You'd recognize him.
I probably would. Not the guy from Grey's Anatomy.
What guy?
That was also on Ally McBeal.
So many people are on Grey's Anatomy.
That's fair. Probably that other guy was on Grey's Anatomy too.
Oh, and apparently Sam Neill suggested some of the top-down shots of him in the hotel room.
Nice. I don't know what to say about it. It's a good movie. It's like,
Yeah,
it's just,
you should watch it.
yeah. All the stuff that happens is like really weird. And a lot of times, yeah, I was like watching and I was like, so much of this movie is just like weird, unexplained shit happening. But
Right.
the reason why it's unexplained is because you haven't read the books. And that's so fucking interesting to me.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Is that it'll be like he'll be like, oh, this isn't the thing in Kane's book because if you look out this window, there's not a church there. And she's like, you idiot, you didn't read it close enough. It would be off this side. And
Yeah,
she
right.
opens the window and there's the church. And he's like, oh. And so it's like stuff where he's like, she's like, oh, I know this from the books. And he's like, this wasn't in the books. And she's like, yeah, I remember this. And he's like, oh, right. Or whatever. And
Totally.
it's just like all this stuff where, it's real, but it's not real. And I don't know. It's an interesting.
Yeah, I like that for, and she's not necessarily a fan. She's just, I mean, that's not where her knowledge comes from. She's just like the editor
Right.
at the publishing house.
Right.
But I do like that from a fan perspective.
Right.
It's an interesting way to do it
Yeah.
without just trolling fans, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which this movie, I would say, does
Yeah.
too.
There's like, I mean, it's not the same thing, but I do love when, like in Supernatural, there's like, they find out that someone's writing books about their life or like their experiences doing this. And from those writings, it turns into something else. Like it's actually like a guy that's like a prophet or whatever. It's a whole thing. But from those books, these teenagers in school, like in a high school, start doing a production of like fan fiction, their own fan fiction
awesome.
from the story where they like, where the like there's a lot of like slash fiction or like queer shipping of these two characters. So in the play they make those two characters gay and they're like, what? And it's so like it's stuff like that, but it's kind of like that thing where you have all this like in a show like Supernatural, it was on for like 15 fucking years. So you have all this stuff to pull from. But to manufacture that in a film from something that doesn't exist is really interesting because, and that's why I like the stuff where he's like giving back Kane and like all this shit where like obviously someone's kid was taken, but like, what does that mean? And like all these little kids, right? All these little kids
running around
that are
with
like
a 3-legged dog.
They're like, you're our mom now, and it's Mom's Day. I'm like, it's not Mother's Day, it's Mom's Day. What the fuck? It's so like all this shit that's happening where you're like, what?
And it looking like everybody looking like it's a progressive disease,
Yes.
like their eyes getting red, but it's just
right. It's just because they read some of the book or whatever. Oh my god!
or they're in the book.
Yeah, the fucking old lady, where she's like. Her eyes are all red. And he's like, you feeling okay? She's like, yeah, I've just been up reading. And you're like, oh, God, what the fuck?
Reading a book of Mace.
And then her husband, I love that her husband is handcuffed to her
ankle. And he's naked.
Like, I just imagine that a tiny, old, frail woman carrying around a man. I mean, he's also old, but carrying an old man around her ankle, I feel like her ankle would just break off.
Yeah.
So it's very funny, but like, I also love when he's like, hears them in the basement and he goes down and looks and she's like, ah! And he's just like, deuces. And he just goes back upstairs.
Later.
It's very funny.
It is.
And the acting is very over the top, but like not in a bad, but like it's a real, and so many people are in this.
Yeah.
David Warner's in this. That one dude from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, and also he was in Star Trek Deep Space Nine. He plays his partner or like one of the guys working. He's like the guy that's with him at the diner when the guy's agent tries to kill.
Oh, Bernie Casey.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, I've heard you're the best, but to see it firsthand.
Trent, you are beautiful. Everybody says you got the best nose for a con in business. But to see it firsthand, I mean to watch you work, is incredible.
Yeah.
Breaking the balls of guy doing
Yeah.
insurance fraud. That scene is hilarious.
That scene is hilarious, but also it's like it's this thing where it's so it's a thing that happens in like specifically in movies. I feel like TV doesn't really do this as much because TV hasn't ever shown cigarette smoking to this degree, to the degree that movies do.
Yeah.
But they're
He's smoking constantly.
He's smoking, but it sounds like his mouth sound like the guy that he's talking about is like sweating and he's smoking, and it's this thing that happens where he's talking while he's smoking, and it just sounds like the smoke is like solid in his mouth because of it. It's like his mouth is so dry while he's smoking.
It just sounds like a dry socket.
Yeah, it just sounds. Like there's no moisture whatsoever in the mouth, and I'm like, how are your lips moving?
It's so evocative and disgusting
Exactly.
because Sam Neill's like, oh, you're really sweating. Should we turn on the AC? He's like, no, I'm fine. And I'm like,
Yeah,
oh,
he's like,
God.
I'm fine.
A
And it just
hot
sounds-
room where multiple people are smoking? I'm like, ugh.
And also, he just sounds like he's chewing the smoke. He's like, I'm fine. You're like, ew, so gross. But it's so, yeah, there's so much about this movie that's like so well done. And yeah, it almost doesn't feel like a Carpenter movie to me. That's the thing that's
It doesn't.
weird.
It doesn't. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, it definitely does in how things are, lots of lightning and lots of like, flashing and like blood and things like that. And that's the thing that Carpenter likes to do, I feel like. But it doesn't, it feels like it's too cohesive almost to be a Carpenter.
well, he didn't write it.
That makes
I think
more
that
sense.
helps.
That makes more sense. We're getting somewhere.
Yeah. And I think that's, The Thing was based on another property, right?
Okay, okay. Yeah.
I mean, I think he wrote Halloween, but I'm not positive.
I do love Halloween. But it doesn't, it is very slow moving and
I
very...
really want to watch The Fog again.
Okay, I haven't seen, is that an 80? Is that 80 or is that
I think
70?
that's in the 80s, yeah.
Okay. I haven't ever seen it. I saw
And
the
Prince
remake.
of Darkness I've never seen, which he considers The Thing, this one, and Prince of Darkness to be his Apocalypse trilogy.
Okay. The Prince of Darkness. Have I seen that?
That one's about the coming back of Christ, but it's all
I-
it's all. It may be hard for you to watch because I think it's sort of POV camcorder stuff.
Oh.
Potentially, I'm not sure if that's true. But or maybe it's just framed as like news reports. War of the World style.
Prince of Darkness. 1987.
The Fog is from 1980.
Okay.
Oh, Jamie Lee's in it.
A group of graduate students and scientists uncover an ancient canister in an abandoned church, but when they open the container, they inadvertently unleash a strange liquid and an evil force on all humanity. Interesting.
Well, it's yeah, it's in a church. Yeah, okay.
Donald Pleasance. Wow. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. That's the one thing about enjoying a movie thoroughly is that I don't totally know how to talk about it.
Right.
Sam Neill, the thing that I really liked about this movie is the fashion choices
In this movie,
by styles. Her wardrobe is very.
I hate her white outfit that she wears most of the
I
time.
love it because it's so 90. Like I remember, like that's the thing, is like it's not like a good outfit, but it's
Definitely
like
not.
it is 100% an outfit that was worn
Yeah.
in the 90s, and that's something that like is a very fascinating thing because you look at that and you're like, oh, I remember those outfits being worn, and then you're like, it's so boring. Like what? That was a choice.
That seems to be the goal.
It's very fascinating.
I mean, I think that's what's fascinating about a lot of Trek. The night,
Yeah.
TNG through Voyager is
Yeah,
just the aggressive,
beige.
taupe, mauve.
I
Just
do love some taupe mauve beige.
Yeah, but I think it's because of Trek.
No, I don't think it's because of Trek. I think it's because I lived through the 90s and I was like, there was like,
So did I.
well, okay, but for me, those colors were colors that we didn't have because we were super poor.
Yeah.
And when they were in, like, it was like, I didn't have any of that stuff and I always wanted it. And so, like, those colors kind of represented, like, more affluency.
That's why I hate them.
Right. But they represent, like, affluency that I was like, I don't want to tell myself I'll never have that. And so that's why I like them. There's this sort of like, I can't tell myself I'll never have that because that's not fair.
I think I have that for certain 80s things. Like my obsession with like smoked glass.
Smoked glass.
You know, like that gray glass. I have some glasses that are that color.
Oh, like dark, like they're like
Kind of dirt, kind of gray brown.
Yeah, totally. Okay, yeah. I have a whole set of dishes that are like green, that are like clear.
Oh, those plates are
Yeah.
middle-sized plates. That kind of
Yeah.
thing.
I have.
But like furnishings out of that.
Oh yeah. I have a whole set of like dishes that are like that dark green, clear.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's hot.
I don't know where they are,
Oh.
and they were my grandma's.
Oh,
And
oh.
I don't, yeah. Mhm.
So they might have radium in them or something.
Probably, yeah. Fingers crossed. Just lead.
If you don't know about the radium girls, look that shit up. It's fascinating. Especially since there used to be a
Statue made out of radium for them.
it's not made out of radium, but there is one in Peru, Illinois, I believe, because there used to be a radium
Yeah.
processing plant or whatever over
Yeah.
there.
I never looked. There's a movie called Radium Girls that I've never watched because I was like, that's okay. I don't want to.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it's horribly depressing.
Yeah. I'm like, just the name alone. It's like a bunch of girls like standing, like,
Yeah.
and I'm like, oh, I get to watch them all horribly die.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
No thanks.
And
I'm
only
good,
a couple of
actually.
them getting any kind of, or their family, their surviving family getting any
Right.
kind of recompense.
I'm
only
like,
a few of them.
no thanks.
Yeah, that's fun.
I'm good. I'm good, actually.
The guy who wrote this also wrote the episode of Voyager where Paris and Janeway turn into lizards.
Threshold.
Yeah. Michael DeLuca. He also worked on a bunch of fucking Nightmare on Elm Street related stuff.
That's not surprising.
But like not a lot of the movies, like Freddy's
Oh,
Nightmares
the
and
the TV show. Yeah.
shit like that.
Yeah.
Where am I?
Where are you, Keith?
He was an executive producer on Dark City.
Oh, the movie?
Yes.
What? Why are you? I want to make sure that I'm not confusing it with anything else. I love Dark City, man. That's one we need to watch for the pod.
Yeah, he wrote 7 episodes of Freddy's Nightmares, Screenplay for Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare. Teleplay for Nightmare Begins Again. Story for Judge Dredd, the 90s one, with Stallone.
Damn. He wrote the story for something based on a comic.
Yeah.
Innovative.
That's it, I guess. He doesn't have a whole lot of writing credits, actually. He did a short called The Lawnmower Man,
Oh, shit.
which I assume is probably more... Yeah. Probably more faithful to the Stephen King story than the film. The full-length film.
The fucking... That was painful. And then we found out we watched the horrible and confusing extended version
Is
of
that
it.
what it was?
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Because you were like, in the extended version, there's all this stuff. And I'm like, all that stuff was in
That we
what
saw?
we watched. And you're like,
We should do a month where it's sequel, Virtuosity, and Circuitry Man, which is the only one we haven't watched. Well, we haven't watched Lawnmower 2, but
it's sequel?
Lawnmower Man 2 with Matt Frewer.
What are...
Lawnmower Man.
Okay.
Lawnmower Man 2,
Okay.
Virtuosity.
And what else?
Circuitry Man.
You hated Virtuosity, though. We watched it, and you were angry
I was.
watching it.
Yeah.
You hated it so much. You hated it more. I didn't understand why you hated it as much as you did. It was a little bit confusing.
I think it's because we watched it when we had been watching... I was high on watching Denzel movies, and that's not a good Denzel movie.
No.
So I think it was... And I was angry at the... It's not a good movie.
I didn't say it was a good
But
movie. I just feel like...
yeah, I think I had expectations.
I see.
I had the wrong.
The wrong expectations.
What else? Oh, it's a Pacific Rim is what it is. You know.
Okay. That's one that I really want to rewatch, but I'm like, when? And I feel like we redid. I was very hopeful for Sunshine because I was like, this is a good movie, and you're like, yeah, man, I just watched it at the wrong time, and we rewatched it, and you're like, I actually hate that movie, and I was like, oh, I love it. I think it's so good, and you hate it.
That one makes me mad. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just it's got a lot of interesting stuff in it, and there's almost like not really a resolution, which kind of gets those things get me. Those are the ways to hook me when it's like they're like, I hate when it's like there's not a resolution and then they do it and then they act like that there's a resolution, or like they like ignore all the things that they said to like, you know, that there wouldn't be a resolution to pretend like there's one. I'm like, what?
I think what I get hung up about it is it's just a guy who's been burnt and somehow survived, and that doesn't work for me.
I feel like that's not quite. It's a guy that he was. It's not quite. That's not really what it is. It's a guy who.
That's exactly what it is.
Who was like changed by the radiation from the sun. Like it slowly changed him. And I don't think it was supposed to be like he got flash burned and didn't die from it. I think it was supposed to be like this was something that was happening over a period of time, and it turned him crazy, which, yeah, I don't remember it.
Potato.
It's fine. Also, Pacific Rim, though. I don't know what you hated about Pacific Rim. There was so much of it.
Similarly, I think the Idris thing took me out.
Yeah,
And
you got...
I'm sorry.
Like,
I'm embarrassed by it.
you were like, why is he doing a fake British accent? And I was like, that's his real accent.
Didn't know he was
and
British.
You said, what? And you were so upset by
I
that?
was.
Very upset by that. You didn't... But like so many interesting...
I also don't know that I've ever enjoyed... It's Del Toro, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know that I like him. His movies.
Yeah. It's so unlike a Del Toro because it's not a tragic ending, and it's not something that's gonna make you fucking want to kill
Fair
yourself
enough.
afterwards. So
Yeah.
I'm like this should.
I do.
It's got Ron Perlman in it.
I have committed to rewatching. I just want to make sure.
I know. This is what I'm saying, though. I don't know. After you rewatch Sunshine with the belief that you would not hate
Yeah.
it, and you were like, nope, I was right the first time. I was like, I don't want to watch.
Well-
I don't want to rewatch Pacific Rim.
Oh. All right.
No, I do, but I'm like, oh no, I'm afraid. So yeah, it's just one of those things where I'm like, oh, what else did you want to rewatch? There's
What do you
something else that you were like, oh, I should probably rewatch that. Anyway, whatever.
And
But there are things like this is the thing where like a lot of times we will be on the same page with movies.
Yeah.
But sometimes like I love Halloween. You're like, it's not good.
It's never done. I've tried several
I
times.
love it. I love that movie.
Doesn't really do it for me.
I don't know why it does. It does.
I don't hate it. It doesn't make me
Yeah.
angry, but
True. Yeah, you don't like it. You don't like it.
and I'm kind of I think I'm 50-50 on Carpenter in general.
Yeah.
Like I
that's
like
how
him
feel.
more as a concept.
Yeah, for sure.
Mostly, I like that I like the music that he makes for his own fucking movies.
He did Nightmare on Elm Street, right?
No.
He did
No.
No, he didn't. He didn't do Freddy's. He didn't do any of those. Okay. That guy
That's,
just doing all of them is a coincidence.
What?
That guy that worked on Mouth of Madness doing a bunch of things
Oh, yeah, no.
was just a coincidence. Okay. Yeah, I mean I like the thing
That's
a
Clive
lot.
Barker, isn't it?
Clive Barker. I don't think so.
Or the guy I confused Clive Barker with?
Probably that guy. Wes Craven.
Yeah. The guy I confused with Clive Barker with.
That's who you. That's funny.
Clive Barker's a writer, right?
I don't know. You know more about him than I do.
Which is
you bring
that
him up
he's
all the
not
time.
Wes Craven?
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like hang on. So John Carpenter, let's see. John Carpenter. Okay, I'm just going to hold on. John Carpenter. He does cool music. I will say that.
Right.
John Carpenter does great music. He did The Thing. Okay, he did They Live.
Right.
That's a pretty cool one.
Yep.
Vampire. Oh, Big Trouble in Little China.
Yep.
Wow.
Escape from New York
Yeah.
and LA.
That's I tried to watch that and I fell asleep. New York. I tried to watch that and I fell asleep. Yeah, he did all the Halloweens. He did Starman?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
That's
That's like
crazy.
his Hollywood movie. He also did Christine,
Yeah,
which I haven't seen.
I haven't seen that, so. All the Halloweens.
He didn't direct all the Halloweens.
No, I mean like he's. Oh God, the Silence of the Hams.
Yeah, I mean, his sense of humor is pretty corny.
Yeah.
Ghosts of Mars. Remember that?
Oh yes. Oh my God.
And vampires. Boo. Boo.
Yeah, Vampires was not good.
Nuh-uh.
It was so bad.
So bad.
Oh, anything with I really don't like who's the guy in that?
James Woods.
Yes, I don't like James Woods.
Yeah, no, he's a piece of shit.
He's a piece of
Piece
shit,
of
but he's
shit.
also not a good actor.
Correct.
And I don't understand how these people that are pieces of shit who can't act worth a shit will be famous for and lauded as talented. And I'm
Somebody
like,
thought he was hot at some point, I guess.
he's not. He's so fucking
agree.
ugly. The same thing with Al Pacino, man. I mean, granted, I've not watched anything from when he was younger, but
Yeah.
like, I cannot stand this man whatsoever. All he does in movies is yell.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't even emote. He just, when he's supposed to be like having an emotion, he just gets louder.
Yeah.
And like, the louder he gets, the more you're supposed to like assume he's feeling things. And I'm like, no,
Yeah.
that's not how that works. I'm sorry. Like, he just immediately walk into the room yelling, and you're like, what's going on? What's going on? Like if someone was behaving that way in front of me, I would be like, no, 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 no. I do this thing where I'm like, click until they pay attention because they're acting like a fucking animal or whatever. You're like, hey, look at me, over here, over here, over here. Yep. Shh. What's going on? No, clapping and shit like that.
Does that work?
No, it pisses people off into submission because they don't know how to respond to it, so they'll get quiet. Like I'll clap, like I'll be like,
Yeah.
hey, and I'll do it until they cannot physically respond anymore because I won't stop clapping my hands and saying hey, and they're just like what, and I'm like, you need to stop yelling, and they'll just be like, they can't because if they yell after that, then they're going to seem like they're a piece of shit.
Right.
And so they'd have to just be like,
Right.
Yeah, it's great. I can be a petty. I can cosplay a white lady apparently when I really want to. Would you recommend this?
Hell yeah.
Sorry. Would you recommend this?
Hell yeah.
Yeah, this is a good one. This is a great horror movie. This is a great 90s movie. This is a great Sam Neill movie. This is one of the best John Carpenter movies. This is a great poking fun at Stephen King movie. Like there's so much to like in this movie. And I don't even know if I really have any detractors in this movie. Like I'm sure I could find some.
Well, I
but
could see it not being everyone's cup of tea.
Yeah, but that's every single movie that exists.
No, for sure. But
know?
I mean, I can see if you like Stephen King. I can see if you like other John Carpenter movies. It's just not working for you because that's how it's like what movies we've disagreed upon.
Yeah.
Like it's not like an easy movie. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
I mean, I don't think it's like challenging, but like it's not a 3-act structure.
Burp.
It's
Yeah.
it's paced well, I think.
Yeah, it's
but
paced so well.
It feels like kind of a slog, also.
Yeah. Okay.
In a way, where it just feels like you were talking about the escalation. In that way, it's like
it just keeps going. Yeah.
It's
you don't really know.
continuum,
Yeah. And I could see if you weren't invested in anything that was going on, being like, "Wow, this is really painful." But that's what I mean, though. Like, if this kind of thing isn't your cup of tea, then yeah, you're not gonna like it. But like, it's so good in so many ways. I think like all the things that could be its flaw, it's like you might think that it trudges along, but at the same time, it's like I think Sam Neill being in it and the like weird like Jurgen Prochnow and am I saying his name right? Prochnow,
I believe.
I feel like that's wrong.
Could be.
Like all these things.
I don't know what to do with the W at the end of his name.
That's why I want to say Nov instead of now.
I get it.
Like him being in it makes it like when there's like enough like acting in it for it not to feel like you're watching a schlocky horror movie.
Yeah.
And there's enough schlocky horror for you not to feel like you're just watching someone's fucking magnum opus or whatever. Them trying to be like, this is the masterpiece, and
Yeah, and I think
this is me not making horror. You're like, ugh.
I think that's what's one of the appeals if you of Carpenter is he like his attempts to sell out or whatever are things like Starman, which is not it's just him directing. It's not him being an auteur in the Hollywood framework.
Yeah.
What is that face?
Sorry, it's just I feel like I'm getting a lot of spirulina on the final bits of it, and it's not.
It's that he wants to keep it.
Yeah.
That's what's interesting about movies to him.
For sure, yeah.
I mean, so he'll make something like Vampires or Ghosts of Mars.
Right.
And
it's
not good.
Right.
But it stays true to that
yeah
sort of spirit.
I mean, like, that's the thing where it's like,
Ghost of Mars was all right.
Ghost of Mars was ridiculous. But it's one of those things where, like, if different people are, like, if different people had been in vampires, I probably would have enjoyed it.
Maybe.
I don't think that it
I know
would have
what you
been
mean.
good. I just would have
Yeah.
like I couldn't get
James
into
Woods
it because
and
James
then,
Woods
like,
is so fucking annoying. And then
Fifth
whatever.
tier Baldwin.
Yeah, like the least Baldwin, if you can believe it.
I don't know.
The guy that looks like that is actually a Baldwin, but you'd believe that he got hired because he just looks like he could be a Baldwin.
right.
You know, like he's the person who gets
He looks
hired in a porno because
right.
he has like blue eyes and dark hair, and they're like, yeah, the Baldwins
He's
are
in the
bigger
porn
than-"
parody of 30 Rock. Or
Yeah,
whatever.
exactly.
30 Cock. Dirty Cock. A dirty cock.
Gross. You're singing it. You're so stupid. You're in Superman pajamas. You're staring at the window from across the living room and you're doing your fingers saying a dirty cock. They're not actually Superman pajamas. It's just a shirt and pajamas that look like a baseball team called Superman or something. I don't know. It's red, gray,
You got it?
and blue.
Does that bring it? Does that evoke it for
It's
you,
like
audience?
it's a softball. It's a softball shirt, right? That's what they're called, like a baseball.
It's a jersey style, yes.
Yeah, and then he's wearing blue gym jams, shorts, pants. I said it normal. Okay, look, I am coming down from a migraine, so brain activity is not my strong suit right now.
I shouldn't even try. Just give up.
Shut your fucking holes.
Would you recommend? I assume.
I definitely would recommend.
I would like to say about the performances. For me, at times, it's distracting.
Yeah.
It may be really smart. I can't tell. You know?
Yeah.
And like Sam Neill as this lead where you can tell I think it's supposed to be kind of tongue in cheek, the idea that he's a badass insurance fraud investigator.
Yeah.
Instead of a cop, you know, like, but they're treating him like he's a hard-boiled detective.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
he may as well be chewing on a toothpick the whole time.
Yeah. I just
Which
like
is-
how much.
Which is funny to put Sam Neill in that role.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's funny how much he falls asleep in this movie. He's
damn near narcoleptic.
always sleeping. I like that the horror part is that Proc now says, "Did I ever tell you my favorite color was blue?" And then he wakes up and everything looks blue.
I'm not going anywhere. I'm God now, you understand?
God's not supposed to be a hack horror writer.
But maybe I can help you believe. Look around when you wake up. Did I ever tell you my favorite color was blue?
Relax, buddy.
And he's freaking the fuck out, and then he wakes up and they're like, "It's okay, man," but I'm like, you woke up and things were just tinted blue, and that scared the shit out of you, and it's like kind of effective because you're like, oh yeah, the world's changed, you know, like it's just like his fucking nightmare is that like the old lady has blue hair. He's like, no, no, no.
And then the guy aggressively.
He's like, calm down, man. And he's like, he is digging his fingernails so hard into Sam Neill's shoulder bones and clavicle. And he's like, it's okay, man. And he's going, and he's like, no, it's okay. And his fingers are bored down so tightly to his bones, not even to his body, to the bones within his body. Like that man is just holding them still. So the month is over.
Oh, damn.
What is the worst one that we did this month?
Probably Dream Team.
Yeah, I agree.
Even though that wasn't, we watched
It wasn't,
we
yeah.
watched way worse movies.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. We're just talking about this month, though, bro.
Yeah. I like this as a theme, though.
What?
Not gonna lie.
Crazy. Yeah.
Cuckoo bananas.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's a good theme. I think as far as Michael Keaton's go, Dream Team is probably my least favorite.
Yeah.
And also, yeah, it just wasn't as hard hitting as I hoped it was going to be. I think Still Crazy is a little
right.
bit of a
Forgot about that one.
runner up for not because it was bad in any way. It just was really
Yeah.
simplistic and didn't
It wasn't
do a lot
crazy.
of, yeah, it wasn't as crazy as the title suggests. I think Nuts was surprising in a
Yeah.
lot of ways. It wasn't
That's a good play. I'm glad we started that.
yeah, it wasn't as like humorous as I thought it. Like I thought it, not like intentionally humorous, but I thought I was gonna laugh a lot at how
okay.
ridiculous it was trying to be. It wasn't quite as much as that. It actually hit a few points
Yeah.
that I was really surprised and said some things that I was very surprised to see
Yeah.
coming out of Barbara Streisand's mouth,
Agree.
if I'm honest. So that one was like a very interesting and surprising one. Even though it wasn't like that in depth or that hard hitting, I think it made a lot of really interesting points for being so mainstream and having fucking Barbara Streisand in it. It was very surprising at how it confronted like the
Classism and
institutionalizing women because they're not behaving and like all of these things, and like it even like talked about like racism and like feeling like you're upset that a white woman is doing sex work instead of a black woman kind of shit. Like you expect like to see that from a poor person, but not like, so there was a lot of things that it said that I was very surprised about. So that one was, I don't want to say it was a surprise hit, but it definitely did a lot more than I thought it was going to do. So I was like,
Agree.
Which I will say, like, that starting there and then going from there to Psycho Cop, I was like, oh wow, we might not even have a bad one this month. And then we did Dream Team and then Still Crazy, and I was like, well, I guess we did.
Yeah.
Psycho Cop was, I'm not going to say it was the favorite of the month because it was so,
It's not good.
it's not good, but it was.
It's not even so bad. It's good. It's just.
Yeah, it's just not good. It's not good. It's
goofy fun.
It's ridiculous.
Low budget.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, and it's low stakes. Like you're not going to be disappointed.
Yes, exactly right.
Because you start watching it. Like it's called Psycho Cop, and it's not.
It's not wrong.
Yeah, but it's also you don't know. At no point is it ever clear what's happening in the movie, so you don't really get disappointed because you don't set up for anything because you just don't fucking know what anyone's doing or what's going on.
Yeah.
Except for, boy, do they want to make soup but not eat it.
And they were sure missing that groundskeeper. And
Yeah.
that one chick just wanted to brush her hair.
Fuck. If you haven't seen the slideshow that I made for on Instagram of just the
It's a very good representation of the film.
and truly, this is just singular scenes, not even like different shots within the scenes.
Oh yeah, no.
It's literally like every scene, not every shot within a scene. So like it wasn't like you'd see her brushing the hair at the beginning of the scene. If there's a screenshot of this scene, it means she was either brushing her hair through the entire scene or holding onto her brush or next to her brush through the whole scene.
Yep.
It wasn't something where you would see it 1 second and then it would go away. It was the whole fucking scene. She's brushing her hair. No joke. It's confusing and I don't understand it as a character. Hilarious, truthfully, hilarious, but nonsensical. Anyway. So, and there's like 6 photos and you could be like, that's not a lot. That's how many scenes that she's in where the entire scene that she's in, she's brushing her hair. I don't think you understand. She's only in maybe 1 or 2 other scenes. And those other scenes, at least 2 of them are her looking for her hairbrush or she's dead. Like there's not a lot of, so anyway, Yeah, I think In the Mouth of Madness is probably I knew it going in. I knew this is why I like ending on the ones that I know
Yeah,
that we're gonna
that's a
like
good-
because
Yeah.
or the ones that I know are gonna be either like the biggest ones out
Yeah,
of
yeah,
all.
yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna. So I definitely think Mouth of Madness is the best one.
It was also a known quantity. you know.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I like ending with a known quantity because we know that it's not going to feel like I feel like when we end like with a stinker, it's like, oh, the month is over.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know, but when we end with
No,
when we
it's
end
really
with like
smart.
a good one, we're like, oh, that was a fun that month was fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, like there's so much about In the Mouth of Madness I think that is interesting to watch as both like a horror movie and sort of like talking about insanity and talking about like I think it's worded not great, but there's like a scene where she's talking about you mentioned it where she's saying like you could be she's basically like you could be institutionalized if normal changed.
Oh, yeah,
if
right.
like the idea of normal changed. And I think that that's like a really silly way to put it, but I think what it's like
It just sounds like something a stoned teenager would say.
well, it sounds like something someone trying to give you like life lessons they've never actually gone anywhere, done anything might say, you're like, do you know what you're talking about? But I like the idea of like I think it's a scarier sort of thing of like if you tell someone that it's like it's not necessarily you that's going to decide that you're crazy.
Yeah, right.
It's the world around you changing that will decide. And I think that that's a much scarier idea of like it's not about whether or not you start acting crazy. It's about what if the terms for what is crazy changes. And that as an idea is very terrifying because you're like, oh, and that's actually more real
Yeah.
than anything. And likewise, there's a big push politically now to start implementing institutionalization.
Oh, good.
So there's a big push with the like gun reform kind of thing to be like, what we really need to do is start institutionalizing people so that they're not able to act crazy. So this thing is scary because it is more of a reality. Like when you allow people like there's even like it's haha funny and a joke, but there's a scene in Futurama where they like institutionalize their Fry is going to get institutionalized. And the judge is like, we sentence you to institutionalization. And like the bailiff or whatever is like, or like one of his assistant is like, oh, all the institutions are full ever since you declared it a crime to be poor.
Oh.
And he's like, oh, okay. So like that, it's fucking Futurama. And it was like 2001 or something that I made this joke, or maybe 2002 or something, or 3 or 4 or even 5. But still, you're like this thing where it's like the criminalization of poverty, the criminalization of not being able to fit in with society is so dangerous. And saying that you'll institutionalize someone because they can't pay their bills. Like that's so
I was
horrifying.
just thinking about here's yeah. I've never read Animal Farm. I've dodged that bullet
Yeah.
over the last few years. I'm like, oh, maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't. And then I was thinking, well, I think why Orwell got a pass is because he's described the horrors of totalitarianism, which was nice during the Cold War for
Yeah.
the first world,
Yeah.
who said, see what communism does?
Yeah.
And and Kafka, like the dystopianness of the terror depicted that we've all grown up with of a faceless
Right.
government that
Yeah.
labels people and puts them away and
Yeah.
or they're disappeared into a labor camp or something like that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Right.
Stuff that did happen. I'm not
Correct.
saying it didn't,
Yeah, for sure.
but that's not a tenet of
Yeah.
communism or
Right.
socialism. They didn't have to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But all that fear mongering of the Cold War led to the deregulation, denationalization, the privatization of
Yeah.
everything in the U.S.
Yes.
and in a lot of stuff in the UK
Yeah.
and elsewhere.
Yeah.
And so everything's profit driven. So we have private prisons. I mean, like
Yeah. Yeah.
that phrase should not exist.
Correct.
I mean, that's.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
mean-
I know they're state run or whatever, but they're for profit, and
Yeah.
private companies provide all the services and the prison labor.
Yeah. I will say, I mean, this is like just piggybacking off what you said. I think something like, saying that like prison is just modern day slavery, like that always feels like it's a little bit of a controversial statement to say.
Yeah, well,
But then when
Right.
like white man,
until you read the 14th Amendment.
that's what, when Whiteman was like, here's what it
Yeah.
says, which
Yeah,
is like
exactly,
slavery
exactly.
is unlawful unless you're a criminal.
Yep.
I'm like, oh, it just says it. It just says that you're
Literally.
a slave,
Literally.
and no joke.
It's
like,
literally
written in the Constitution.
slavery's over,
except
except in this one case.
yeah, except for and so if you think in any way that it is like slavery was not made for the. I mean, okay.
You thought we weren't going to talk about race relations
Right.
or slavery.
When we're talking,
Psych.
slavery wasn't invented for rich versus poor people, which is sort of how it gets presented. It was presented as,
I'm not sure what you mean.
so it wasn't just about rich people being overlords of poor people. I mean, that is a way that, like,
Okay. Just go on.
well, I'm talking, so thank you.
Oh, no, I didn't mean. I'm sorry.
That is a way that, like,
I
oh, what do you call it? Where it's like, it's not slavery, but it's like, you have
Indentured
made,
servitude?
yeah, right. That's a way for those. But slavery within the U.S. This is
Yes.
specifically within the U.S. Chattel slavery.
Mm-hmm.
It was about enslaving Black people. Period. Like that. It was not like, it was literally, we're taking people
it's
from
only stealing people from
yes,
somewhere else
and
to
bringing
do
them
free
here.
labor
Correct.
to make
To build
a nation from
a
scratch
nation that you
on top of
yes
a
on-
genociding
Correct.
of all these other people.
correct. So when you
You're welcome.
So this is slavery within the United States. So I'm only talking about U.S. slavery, and I'm only talking about this because we're only referring to literally how the Constitution was written.
Yeah.
So you cannot tell me that a thing that was created specifically about Black individuals, stolen human beings, a thing that was created about that, and is only legal. Now, it is legal now, but only for the imprisoned. You're going to tell me that our legal system and our entire our entire country has been built around is not inherently racist. Like that alone, because like slavery was never white people. It was never like people will be like, the Irish. Shh. No, stop.
Right.
We're not doing that. We're talking about the way that the U.S. and the history of the U.S. built slavery. Not just, like, they didn't just do it and then say, oh, this is bad. Like, we sort of talk about it like it happened and then we had a war and then it stopped. That's not really the truth of it. We had it. We had a war. Then we tried not to stop it for as long as we could. Once we couldn't get away from that anymore, we still kept segregation for a very long time. There was still, like, you couldn't vote. Like, there's all of these things that were done to ensure that these people, even though they weren't enslaved, still didn't have rights, still couldn't do anything, and still were essentially imprisoned in a way where, you know, they built their own cities, which we destroyed. They created things which were destroyed. Like, so many people were trying to say, okay, if we can't have things with you, we'll have it for ourselves. That wasn't good. You can't have it at all. It wasn't that you can't have it with us. You can't have it at all.
Well, and as we've seen, you know, like, has become glaringly clear, should be anyway, since Donald Trump, at least. I mean, I think has become unavoidable for me.
Right.
Anyway, is that white people will sacrifice themselves.
Yes.
If it means upholding white supremacy.
Yes. 1,000%.
Or,
yes.
I should say, I mean, and in this case, I'm referring to white supremacy to mean making sure white people get more than anybody else.
Yes.
And especially the anti-blackness of...
Correct.
There's no way I can be on the same perch as a black person.
Right. And, like, considering it like a moral failing on your part.
That's why we can't have universal health care. It's that straightforward.
Right.
White people don't want to pay into a system that will benefit
people of color, but specifically black people.
Yeah.
Because black people don't deserve that because and it's like, if I really, like, I'm always, like, very interested whenever someone, like, will be like, why? Will, like, ask someone a question of, like, why? And there's never really an answer for these things. They just get incredibly flustered because they don't understand that this isn't something that comes from a place of reasoning. It's not can't, it's not even, like, logic isn't flawless, despite what people think that logic and flaws are moral opposite or total opposites, but they're not. Logic isn't flawless, but, like, people will think that, like, if something is, like, if it can be argued, then it's got to be based in logic somewhere, but that's not necessarily true also. like sometimes people will be like, well, even if your logic is flawed, there's still going to be a logic to it. But a lot of times when people have this, like, inherent, like, white supremacy built into them from a young age that they're not even aware of, they don't have a reason for it. And so if you keep asking them why, they're not going to understand how to answer you because it's going to be like, just because, because they don't understand. But I'm bringing all that up because this whole month, all the movies have been talking about craziness and insanity and going crazy and feeling crazy and being considered crazy and are you crazy and what is crazy, all of that. And I think In the Mouth of Madness and the way that they were describing, how you aren't in control. Like people will think I can't be crazy because I know what's real. I know that's not how it works. The world around you can decide in an instant that everything that you've done is insane. And it could be something that everyone agrees on. It could be something that's argued upon, but you can be institutionalized for something that in your mind
which is
doesn't
what
make
Nuts
sense.
gets into, right?
Yes, correct. Yes.
A different angle, obviously, and different direction.
Right. And
it does happen for
correct.
communities that are people who are already marginalized in some other way, very often.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you've heard all kinds of horror stories, I hope.
Yeah.
You're aware of the horror stories of you get one diagnosis and then it's
Yes.
impossible to get it
Undone.
undone.
Yeah. But also like it's not it's like even if that is an accurate diagnosis, you are stigmatized for the rest of your life. Like
Yeah.
like a diagnosis is supposed to be a good thing. Like I've been diagnosed as this crazy thing. And so you can get medication and not have those symptoms control your life. But instead, that becomes a fucking spider on your back that is terrifying to people. They're like, "Oh, you're crazy, so you can't do this, you
Right.
can't do that." And it's like that's not how a diagnosis is supposed to work. That's not how I'm on medication so that I'm helped. That's not how it's supposed to work. And we've created this thing, and I think, I don't I'll shut up about this eventually, but I think something that is unfortunate is that COVID did something to people, or I don't want to blame COVID itself, but COVID, the allowance of people to respond to COVID however they felt like it, and a lot of the government pushing people to ignore sickness and all of that. COVID is a disabling. It's a
Yeah.
mass disabling thing, and I do believe that there is a conspiracy within COVID, but I don't think it's the one that a lot of people will like. I don't think COVID itself is the conspiracy. I think people being affected by COVID, the lack of acknowledgement around that is the conspiracy.
Oh, for sure. It's not
Because what they are doing is they are disabling you, and they are allowing for you to be disabled. And then they're doing things like calling for institutionalization, for that to come back as a tool of punishment. They're wanting, like, already if you have a predetermined, illness, it's really hard to get health coverage. All of these things, what they're trying to do is they're trying to make you sick so that you are not well, so that you cannot do things, and then you cannot help yourself, and then you get punished, and then you get dealt with. And if you think that that's a very, what do you call it? Like,
stark.
not stark, but if you think that that's like, oh, that's not what they're doing, that can't be it.
Exaggeration.
Yeah, an exaggeration.
Hyperbole.
Yeah, hyperbole and all of this. So like that would never happen. It's already happening.
Yeah, man. I mean,
It's already happening. It already happened. They're literally pushing to bring back institutionalization as like a tool of punishment.
I mean, I guess
that is
everybody's already, all the shit about nobody wants to work and quite quitting. And
yeah.
I mean, it makes sense to me that it's like, oh, well, we got to get labor somehow. So
Right. Yep.
we got to find another way to
Yep.
pump up
Yep.
numbers. And
Yep. And no one wanting to work is also a fallacy.
of course,
That's not true. The amount of people that are looking for work that cannot find it is insane. Like people will be begging for work and they will not get hired. Like
it's also, there's all the pilot programs of universal basic income.
yeah.
The majority of people still
Yeah.
choose to go and get a job. They don't
Yes.
have to.
Right.
In the places where the basic income covers basic necessities,
Yeah.
people still go out and work.
I want to say this. I don't think you understand how many old ladies are dying for a job. Like, I really don't think you understand that.
Yeah.
Like, and that, when I say old ladies and why I'm saying it that way, I worked at a bank and I worked for someone who was so fucking annoying. If you got on the right side of her, she'd be nice, but nobody really liked her. She wasn't pleasant to work with. She was super, like, irritated with everyone. She'd get pissed off at you. She had no problem telling you off. She wasn't doing this. You would assume, you're like, wow, you must hate your job. You must only be here because you have to. My job, the job that I personally had. Now, most of the time when people work at a bank, they're not allowed to, like, especially if you're on the front line, if you're a teller or something like that, they do not let you see anything about each other. If someone works at a bank and they're like, deposit this check, you can do that and that's it. Like, you can deposit a check for them. You can do a withdrawal for them. You have no idea what their fucking balance is. You have no idea. You have no idea. You cannot see anything. However, when you have the job that I had, you can see everything. And I just happened upon one day her bank account. And this woman had like $500,000. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? I'm like, bitch, you don't even need to work. And you're just here being, you can retire. She was of an age where she could fully retire.
She's a Cheryl Tunt.
Yeah. And she just was a bitch to everyone. And I was like, what the fuck? I don't think you understand that people get jobs not because they have to.
Well, they're fucking bored.
People get
they need to have a purpose.
And if you had somebody, if your entire workforce was people that wanted to be there instead of people that did not feel like, and you did not make it so that people were afraid because they were like, I can't say anything. I can't do anything because I might lose my job. If you had an
livelihood,
environment, right.
My ability to feed and clothe and house myself.
If you had an environment that was not based around the fear of being like fucking completely homeless in a week because you lost your job, shit would go insanely smoother. You think it wouldn't. People think it wouldn't. But if there's not that level of stress, if people can just go there and just do their job, they're going to be more communicative. They're going to be happier to be there. They're going to be more pleasant to work with. They're going to say, hey, I don't think this job is the right fit for me. You probably should get someone who it works better for. There's going to be so many ways that this job is going to be so much easier for everyone. But the idea that things can be easier is like ripped away from people. Mm-hmm. Like, if it's easy, then that means you're not doing it right. If it's easy, that means and it's just bullshit. And it's all ways to get you used to the idea that a job is supposed to make you miserable. A job is supposed to be the hardest thing you've ever done. A job is supposed to make you want to kill yourself. And you just have to do it to get through life. And it's why people are supposed to talk about what they get paid. It's why people aren't supposed to talk about, like, you're not supposed to discuss things with your coworkers, because if people started talking, then they might unionize. Or if people started talking, they might ask for a raise, and they might say, I know this person that does half of my job, or like does half the work I do, is getting paid twice as much as me. Right. So I need to be paid twice as much as them.
And usually those people are your superior.
Or they're not. Like, there are times when people are like paid so much money and their manager finds out that they're paid like double what they're paid, and they're like, why are they getting paid more than me? I mean, this is like a lot of times in more corporate things, not like, it's not going to be like at a cafe or something like that. But still, at a cafe, like, you'll have like managers that get pissed off that like the employees that are making like, $8 an hour are taking home tips, and they're like, I want to take home tips too. And it's like, you make $25 an hour, and they're like, yeah, but I still have fuck off, anyway, whatever. All of that to say that it's an important thing, like, dismissing anyone because of their insanity, dismissing someone because of how society views them, is a really dangerous thing, because you're just a couple steps away from homelessness at any time. And you're just a couple steps away from losing everything. And that's like a scary thing. And I know, and that's like not necessarily something you want to be reminded of. But when you see somebody that is deemed all of these things, a lot of times it wasn't due to things they did on purpose to get there.
Oh, right.
They didn't act, they weren't asking.
The whole moral.
It's not like people don't choose to be homeless. People don't choose to be institutionalized. People don't choose to do a lot of these things that they get punished with. It
is so wild to me. And again, since, I don't want to, it's a convenient time frame. It's
Yeah.
not the person, but since Trump,
Yeah.
it started before then, certainly.
For sure. For sure.
But it's wild to see
Yeah.
all the arguments come back that I spent
Yeah.
most of my time, from high school on, ideas that I inherited just by being born when I was, right?
Yeah.
Into a white
Yeah.
working class middle class family. See all the shit I unlearned
Yeah.
or
Coming
have
back around,
tried to
Yeah.
just to, like you see people making YouTube big scare quotes documentaries about homelessness and people just living on the street because they want to, and it's because
Yeah,
it's easier
right.
to panhandle and live in Portland
Yeah.
because you get free health care
Right.
than if you do a real
Yeah.
work in a coal mine in
Yeah.
Eastern Tennessee or something.
Right.
I'm like, yeah, it probably is in certain ways.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean working in a coal
Right.
mine is morally better.
Yeah. But also it's like maybe they were working in a coal mine.
Yeah,
And
right.
then they
Maybe they can't
physically
work.
can't.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's easier because literally they can't do anything else.
Yeah.
Like there's also I mean, I think that's one thing about like coming to terms with it's something that I struggle with being like calling myself disabled. I'm always like, "Ooh, am I really disabled? Am I, do I have the right to say that?" But then I'm like, "Oh yeah, I like Keith will like get real pissed when I try to pick things up all by myself because he knows that I'm going to do it wrong and I'm going to hurt myself. And then he's going
It's
to have
not that
to.
you're going to do it wrong.
Well, no, yeah. What I mean by do it
It's not
wrong
about
is
technique.
that no, it's that I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it wrong in the sense of like, I'm going to think that I can carry more than I can. I'm going to think that I can hold more than I can. And that's what I mean by do it wrong. Like I think that I can do more than I can. And if that's the case, if like you consistently are like picking up trash bags and then the next day you're like, it hurts to breathe a little bit. Like, you're probably maybe a little disabled. Like just throwing that out there, if I sleep wrong, then I'll have trouble walking. Like, and that's not a able-bodied thing that happens.
I mean,
I can't sleep on my right side without being in severe pain.
which really affects your job performance, on the job performance.
Right. Yeah. Anyway, all I'm saying is like,
No, and I don't want to get all big brained and like, reality ain't what it used to be.
right.
But all these things, you can't separate them out.
Yeah.
There's just some
Yeah.
objective normal.
Right.
I hope any listener doesn't hold on to that. I mean, I think the threat is that a lot of that we learn it without realizing we learn it,
Yeah.
and it's hard to
Right.
unlearn, therefore.
Right. Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, of course, who is considered disabled, who is considered mentally, neurodivergent,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
we would say now, he's going to be in a context of a social economic system,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
of course it's going to be informed by that. It can't be
Right.
separate from that. To pretend that it is dishonest.
Yeah. And
And also my favorite thing to say, as you know, the only tool we have to learn to look at the human brain is the human brain.
right.
So that's why it's pretty slow moving science.
Yeah. Yeah. And really, I think the lesson that is the takeaway is that at any time, any one of us can turn around and see John Carpenter's monsters chasing after us.
Why so serious?
Hey man, as you have touched me. Hey man, as what do you want from me? Hey man, as I will be free. Hey man, as I need you so. Hey man, as what do you want from me? Hey man, as I will be
structure.